Okay, so this is our new class packet. This chapter is over statistics, which for the most part is going to be review for a lot of you. This packet is on Classroom, so if you have a printer, it'd be nice for you to print it out and follow along with me. If you don't, maybe you can just follow along at least on your computer. But I'm going to start on page 1, which is our new review set. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Some of you may have been here yesterday for this lesson. I guess I should say that in advance. This is what I taught yesterday in class on Monday. So if you were here and then you got quarantined, you know, you should be good to go. You should, unless you want to review, you can watch this. But if you aren't here, or if you were not here yesterday, then this is what you missed. So for this review set on page 1, this first one, which function f of n represents the nth term of the sequence? The nth term means any number for n. So basically, like, what equation is going to work so that you can plug any number in for n and you're going to get an answer for a number in the sequence. And this was actually on your test on Friday, and the correct answer was B. The first term is 3 multiplied by 2, because you're multiplying everything by 2 in the sequence, and then to the power of n minus 1. It's basically just the explicit formula for geometric sequence. All right, number 2. They give you 2 graphs, g of x and f of x, and it says create g of x in terms of f of x. When it says in terms of, that means you're going to start with f of x, and if you start with the f of x graph, which is down here, how do I get to g of x? Well, I would go up 3, so it would be plus 3. That's it. A lot of people overthink number 2, and it's really just that simple. The last one, which graph represents a function whose domain is the set of non-negative numbers? Domain is x values, and non-negative means positive. So which one of these graphs is showing only positive x values? That's basically what you're looking for, and that would be C. So the review set only has 3 questions on it. The review set quiz will be Thursday, and for those who are quarantined, you will take the quiz on Thursday. I'll just post it to Classroom. Okay. So I'm going to move on to page 2, which is basically what this chapter is about. We covered quite a bit yesterday. So I'm going to try to maybe skip over some stuff, because I don't want to make this video super long. But we did go over quite a bit of material. And before I get started, I should mention you are going to need Desmos for almost every single question. So maybe right now, pause this video and get Desmos up if you don't already, and then come back and we'll continue. Okay, so I'm assuming you have Desmos up, and like I said, a lot of this in this chapter is review. So first, we're gonna look at this data set, this list of numbers, and find the mean, median, and mode. Mean is the average. That's when you add all the numbers together and then divide by how many there are. Median is the number in the middle, and mode is the number that occurs the most. Now, mean and median, we're actually gonna find using Desmos. And why we're using Desmos is because in April, you gotta take an air test to graduate. And on that air test, they use Desmos as their calculator. So therefore, we're just going to use it on the test, just so you can practice with it. Now, so for this first equation, I'm gonna use Desmos to do mean and median. Mode, you don't use Desmos, because mode is the number that appears the most, which would be 10 in this case. So we already know the mode's gonna be 10. So I'm gonna attempt here, hopefully I do it smoothly. I'm gonna try to adjust the camera precisely so you can possibly see what I'm doing. Maybe. Okay, close enough. I just kind of want to move this a little bit more. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to show you how to find the mean and median on Desmos. So first, type in the word mean, and then in parentheses, you're going to write out all these numbers as they appear on the paper. So in this first question, I'm going to write down all the numbers, and I'm going to include the commas. And when I do that, it's going to give me 10.44444, which we'll just round to 10.4. So I'm going to say the mean of the first one is 10.4. Now for the median. Now when I do the median, I'm not going to retype all these numbers because I'm still using the same numbers. I'm just going to replace the word mean with the word median. And it's going to tell me the median is 10, which would be the middle number. Now, for this one, it wasn't that hard to just look at your paper and see what the middle number was. But the reason why Desmos is still helpful is because when you do the median, the data has to be in order from smallest to greatest, which it was in this example. But if it's not, you don't have to take the time and relist it in order. You can just put it in the Desmos exactly how it is on your paper, and Desmos will give you the answer. So it is helpful. I should also mention that Desmos is very sensitive. So if you put 2 commas in, okay, it's going to tell you there's an error. You have to type it in exactly how it is on your paper in order to get the correct answer. So, okay, now I'm going to attempt to move it back. We'll see. When I did this in March, when school shut down, I dropped the camera everywhere and it was a disaster. So, trying not to do that. Okay, it's a little sideways, but you know, we'll go with it. So, that's number 1, the mean, median, and mode. So I'm going to jump down here now to where it says standard deviation. And basically that is a number that they calculate with data. And that number describes how spread out your data is. So, for example, a big standard deviation number means the data is very spread out. And vice versa. The smaller the number, the standard deviation score, the more close together your numbers are in your data. So for number 4, it says the following standard deviations for test scores were given for 5 classes. Class 1 has a standard deviation score of 4.2. Class 2 has a standard deviation score of 5.76, and so on. Which class had the most consistent scores? Well, consistent means they were pretty similar, okay? So their scores were pretty close together. For example, they all roughly got maybe an 80% on the test, or between like an 80 and an 85%. That's what it means by consistent. So since that means it was close together, our standard deviation score has to be very small. So the answer to this one would be C, class 3, because they have the smallest standard deviation score. Okay, so now I'm going to go to this last example here, and we're going to actually calculate what the standard deviation would be, and we're going to use Desmos. Now, before I find standard deviation, just looking at my numbers range from 2 to 9. That's not really a big spread out. That's pretty close together. So that means that my score, when I calculate this, is going to be a small number. So here I go again, trying to move this back. I'm very sorry if you were getting dizzy. Okay, that was a little bit more smooth. So I'm gonna get rid of this because we're doing new numbers now. And you're going to do the same thing where you're gonna put your numbers in parentheses, but you're not gonna type in the word standard deviation because that's 2 words, doesn't work. So they actually abbreviate it with STDEV. STDEV. And you might wanna write that down if you're gonna forget, but that's how they abbreviate standard deviation. And then in parentheses, same thing, I'm gonna put all my numbers in question 3 or example 3, and I get the standard deviation score, we'll say of 2.5 if I round it, which is a very small number, which is what we wanted because our data was not very spread out. Now, let's say on the test, you forget this abbreviation. If you go down here to the keyboard, under functions, you gotta make sure the word stats is highlighted because we're doing statistics. That abbreviation is right here, STDEV. So if you forget, it is there for you. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over to page 3 in our packet, which is gonna be the last page we're gonna do today, which involves more Desmos, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to keep going back and forth here. Okay, So on page 3, we're going to do box and whisker plots, which you've done before in the past, and it might be a little easier because, again, Desmos is going to do a lot of the work for you. But this is what a box and whisker plot looks like, just to kind of hopefully refresh your memory. And before we create our own, you need to know what these 5 components are. So in a box and whisker plot, you have a min, which is the smallest number. And then max would be your biggest number. Median is the middle number, which we've already gone over and have done in Desmos. And then you have Q1 and Q3. So Q stands for quartile. Q-U-A-R-T-I-L-E, which again, you might want to write down because you're going to have to know how to spell it into Desmos. But Q stands for quartile. So quartile 1 is the median of your smaller numbers. And quartile 3 is the median of your bigger numbers. So before you can even construct a box and whisker plot, they call this the 5-number summary. It's the 5 numbers you need to figure out before you can graph your box and whisker plot. So in this first example, the data set 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, I'm not gonna read that all, represents the number of hours spent on the internet in a week by students in math class. Create a box and whisker plot to represent the data. So before I even make my box and whisker plot, I'm gonna find the 5-number summary. So, starting with min and max. Min is your smallest number, which would be 5. Max is the biggest number, which is 19. And then I'm going to find Q1, median, and Q3 using Desmos. So, bear with me. I'm going to go back over here, or I'm going to try to. Okay, good. So let's start with the median because we already know how to do that. So type in the word median and then maybe pause the video if you don't want to get behind, but take the time to type in all these numbers. Okay, and you should, oops, I didn't realize, oh, we're still there. Okay, we're good. You should get 10. So the median is going to be 10. Now we're going to do the quartile. So make sure you're paying attention because this is where people get confused on Desmos, is when we have to find the quartiles. So I'm going to keep all these numbers there because I'm still using these data, but I'm going to go and get rid of the word median and type in the word quartile. Okay, now same thing in your keyboard under stats, the word quartile is there. So just in case you forget how to spell it, it is there for you. Now, if you notice, when I type in the word quartile, it says there's an error. Well, that's because there's 2 quartiles. There's quartile 1 and there's quartile 3, and it doesn't know what you're asking it to find. So pay attention. Put your cursor between the parentheses and the number 5, and you're going to put brackets around your points. Brackets are like the box symbol, like there's, I don't know, like if you took a square and broke it apart. It's right below your backspace. But then I'm going to take my cursor down to the very last number. And right after that number, I'm going to finish the bracket. And after the bracket, I'll put comma 1. And that'll give me the first quartile, which is 8. So I'm going to write that down. And then you just change that to comma 3. And that will give you the third quartile, which is 17. So that is how you do the quartiles in Desmos. So now I'm going to go back to my paper, which will be the last time, I promise. And I have my 5 numbers. Now I'm going to actually draw out my box and whisker plot. So I'm going to create a number line. My data goes from 5 to 19. I mean, if you just want to list out 1 to 19, you can. You do have to start by making a number line. If it's, you know, a wider range of data, you could maybe go up by 2s. Of course, I didn't do a very good job. I didn't make mine long enough. All right, we'll just go to 19. So I'm gonna list just 1 to 19. Again, you could go by 2s, doesn't matter. But after you make your box and whisker plot, or after you make your number line, your box goes from Q1 to Q3. So from 8 to 17, I'm gonna make my box. And then where the median is at 10, you put a line. And then your whiskers are your min and max. So to 5, and then to 19. And there is your box and whisker plot. Okay, I'm almost done, I promise. I know this is already a 15-minute video. There just was a lot we covered yesterday. So we're gonna do this last example, and then I promise we'll be done. Okay, so in this last example, they give you a box and whisker plot, and it says it represents the amount of rain in inches for the year of 2014. What is the minimum amount of rain for the year of 2014? Well, that would be 16 inches, because the whiskers are the min and the max, and the min is at 16. The next one says, what is the median amount of rain? Well, that would be 22, because the line is where the median is. And then it says, what is the range? The range is your max minus your min. It's your biggest number, your max, which is 28, minus 16. And that's gonna give you 12. So we're gonna say 12 inches is the range. And then last year I made another note, interquartile range. That is the range of your box. So Q3 minus Q1. So Q3 would be 26 minus Q1, which is 18. So it's gonna be 26 minus 18, which would be 8 inches. So make sure you know the difference between range and interquartile range. Range is your max minus your min. Interquartile range is your box, Q3 minus Q1. Okay, I think I'm done. So please keep checking email and classroom every day for updates and assignments. And please keep up with your work and let me know if you have any questions.